Objections are always going to be a salesperson's biggest nightmare and the number one thing that holds the average rep back from getting more deals. And the problem is most people deal with them wrong. And what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into the psychology of an objection, what it is, what does it mean, and how should we as sales professionals view it? How should we deal with it? How should we handle it? Hopefully in the outcome of this video, you will have a deeper understanding of what an objection is, the signals that it's sending you from the client's end, what they're thinking, where they're at, and you'll be much more confident in dealing with the objections that you run into. Hey guys, before we get to the rest of the video, it helps out a ton if you can like and subscribe. Of course, only if you find any value. If you didn't think this video was helpful, then don't like, don't subscribe, don't leave a comment. But if you found any value, send it to a friend, like, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section on what you want to hear us go over next. So objections, guys, are not bad things. They're not something to be ignored or ran away from or something to shy away from or, you know, to think that it's a rejection of you. What an objection truly is it's data and it's information. An objection is a window into the client's thought process in their mind and their brain. And if you can understand that and how to tap into that, then you're going to be like a grand chess master with these clients. The problem is what most agents do is most agents react to objections. They're not thinking ahead. And when you're playing chess and a chess master, they're 5, 6, 10 steps ahead. They already know how the game is going to end and they've only made 3 or 4 moves. And so the whole time what's happening is they know what's going to happen ahead of time and they're setting up for it for that checkmate move at the end. But the problem is if you're reactive in the moment to these objections that you get, you're not going to handle them properly. So the first thing you guys have to do is you have to change the way you perceive an objection. So you guys, you have to listen to clients' objections. Most of the time that people get objections, they do one of 3 things. Either A, they ignore it, B, people fight it, or C, you fold to it. Right? So ignoring it is just hoping that it goes away, and it's not going to. Fighting it is we take that objection and you know, we beat it down, we hammer it, we do way too much right there, and the client feels that they feel pushed into a corner and you know that they lose trust and credibility with us. Or we fold to it, we panic, we discount, we retreat, anything like that, you know, we fold to it. And the reality is you can't do any of those things. So I'm going to try to walk you guys through what to do with the objections and how to understand them. I think first of all, it helps to break down what an objection is really telling you. Every objection can be boiled down to one of 4 different categories. 1, they don't fully understand. It's clarity. They don't fully understand it yet. They don't value it yet. So they don't believe it's worth more than it costs is the second one. The third one is trust. They're not sure that you'll deliver or that the product will deliver. And the fourth one is urgency. I don't see why to do this now instead of why to do it later. So almost every objection you're going to get is going to boil down into one of these categories, and knowing that and trying to figure out which one of these categories is it in is going to shape the way that you deal with that objection. The first thing you guys need to do when you get objections is, please, for the love of God, listen. Don't over talk the client. So many times I hear the client giving an objection and the agent is talking over them and barely letting the client get a word out. The reality is top closers are excited about objections. We're excited to listen to those things because the more information that I have about what's inside of the client's mind, the better chance I have at closing them. But most low performing sales reps, they don't know what the client's thinking. So they're trying to tell the client what to think. And people love to buy but hate to be sold. You cannot tell the client what to think, but you do need to know what the client's thinking. So the first thing you need to do is you need to listen. You need to pay attention to the things that they say and the objections that they're giving you. For instance, if someone says earlier on in the conversation and you're trying to sell mortgage protection and that they have, hey, I already have life insurance. Well, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to completely ignore that because it's obviously relevant. It's a window into what the client's thinking. They're thinking of it as a potential objection. I'm not going to blow it up right there and try to figure out how much life insurance they have and you know, try to tell them how this is different. I'm certainly not going going to fold to it and say, okay, well, you already have a policy, you're good. So the move that we're going to make is we're going to listen, we're going to pay attention, we're going to mark that down. And then you need to ask some follow-up questions so you have a lot of good information. Now, guys, how you ask these questions is really, really important. It cannot feel like an interrogation. If they tell you, hey, my cousin also does solar, I'm going to reach out to him and, ask him, what his thoughts on this specific thing are. Well, you need to know some information, right? In life insurance, what that looks like is I find out, hey, my cousin has their license, they sell life insurance as well. So I need to know some information, but it can't feel interrogative. So I need to know what company does your client work for and how long have they been doing it. But if you just say, well, what company does your cousin work for? Well, they're going to clam up. It feels like an interrogation. They're not going to want to tell you. So instead, be interested, make it conversational. Gotcha. Another fellow life insurance agent. Well, what company do they work for? Well, amazing. Any idea of how long they've been doing that? So now if I know what company that they work with and how long they've been selling life insurance, I know their competency level. I know, or can at least find out what products they offer and how mine differ. So the move here is not to deal with that right away and say, hey, your cousin works for Primerica. They only do term policies. If you're 75, you're not going to be able to get a term. We're not going to do that right away, right? Are we eventually going to do something like that? Absolutely. But remember, we're playing chess, not checkers. We're not thinking about the next move. We're thinking about 15, 20 moves ahead. So instead of dealing with that objection right there, we need to know where all the other pieces on the board are, because that's essentially what we're doing with that financial inventory and asking the clients other questions about their health, the situation, their finances, the other coverage they have, retirement, things like that. We're playing chess. So when you get objections that are valid, that are real potential objections that the client really could say, like they already have a policy, they know someone else who does life insurance, hey, we don't need it, we have retirement, maybe they have bad coverage, they have good coverage already. There's a lot of them out there. What you've got to do is you want to deal with them because they need to be dealt with, but you cannot deal with them until you know where every single piece on the board is. Because if I start attacking the term policies and the Primerica thing and this and that, well, I might find out later on that they have 2 term policies already and I'm attacking something they've already bought. Or maybe I find out later that they already have a whole life policy. And now the basis of my argument of why they shouldn't go with the Primerica guy, well, they've already done that. So it's so important to know that information, listen, ask some follow-up questions so you have all the information that you need to know about that subject. And then once all the pieces are on the board and you can see everything clearly and you know what the client's next moves are going to be, you can then plan your next moves and act accordingly. But the problem is, again, way too many people were either just completely ignoring it, we're fighting it right there before we know truly what's going on. So every salesperson listening to this, you guys need to go do a couple of things. First of all, guys, you need to find what are the 4 to 6 most common objections for my industry. You need to write those down and you need to learn all the available information about every single one of those objections. If it's, I already have another company, find out all the information you can about every single competitor. Like let's say, one of the main objections is we already have a company that sprays for our bugs. Well, you need to find out what are the top 6 pest control companies in this area, and you need to find a list of pros and cons about all of them, and you need to be out ahead of that. So when they say, well, hey, I already have EcoShield, or I have this, or I have that, perfect. They said they have EcoShield. Here's the 6 things that are great about them. Here's the 5 things that are bad about them. And here's my talking points moving forward. And that's how tactical everything needs to be. If you're brand new to sales or to your industry, guys, I would encourage you, don't take the next week and a half to research these sorts of things. Lean on your mentors, the people helping you and training you, and ask them what are the top 6 objections, 5 or 6 objections, write those down, try to learn those. And then as you go, learn about the different variations on each objection so you can plan ahead and you can know what to say. But again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen. The second thing is we're going to ask plenty of follow-up questions, but again, in a conversational way that's not interrogative, that doesn't make them feel like they have to give you information. And another really good way to get more information is to ask open-ended questions. So let's say they already have life insurance. You don't want to ask yes or no questions as in,
hey, do you know how much coverage you have? Or do you know what company that's through?
Because so many times you're just going to get a no, not really, right? So instead of saying, do you know how much coverage you have? Say, hey, how much life insurance do you have? Or how much does that pay out when you die? Instead of,
Do you know who it's through? Hey, which company did you get that through?
And be genuinely interested, right? Because the more conversational you can make it, the more information you're going to get from your clients. Wow, I'm super glad you already have some life insurance. Which company is that through? And like, you're genuinely interested in them. I heard someone say something one time, be more interested in them than interesting to them. And I think a lot of times that's a mistake that we as salespeople make, is we're trying to be so interesting and so engaging that we forget we just need to be interested in what our clients are saying and what their situation is. And so once you have the available information, you need to ask yourself, okay, do I have all the chess pieces on the board, and is this an appropriate time to deal with this objection? Or do I need to just save this in the memory bank and make sure I bring this back up and I recover this and before I actually go over my pitch? And so if you're in life insurance, the way the marker, most of us call it the financial inventory, client needs analysis, where you ask about their health and things like that. It's after that, after you know everything about their situation, then you can bring this up and you can deal with it. To give you guys an example of what this looks like, let's say for instance, I have a client who I'm trying to sell mortgage protection to. And they tell me at the beginning of the call, they already have a big 401k. And, hey, look, if anything happened, I would use my 401k. Okay. And again, there's the three things that most agents do. They either ignore it. Well, you don't want to ignore that one because that's a valid objection, because they could use that 401k to pay off their house. Well, you don't want to fight it right there, because if you say, oh, well, when you die, you don't want her to have to use the 401k to pay off the house because then you don't retire. And then they say, well, hey, I already have life insurance actually. Or hey, I already have these 6 things set up. And you don't know that, right? So you don't necessarily want to fight it right there. You want to get all the information available about it, agree. Perfect, dude. I'm super glad you guys have yourselves set up well for retirement. Most 60-year-olds don't even have that. So kudos to you. Hey, when you pass away, how much of that would pay out to her when you die? And find out about how much money is in it. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna store that information. You're not gonna deal with it right there. And you're gonna do the rest of the process. You're gonna find out how much life insurance they have, how much coverage they have through work, if they have any short and long-term disability, do they have any other sorts of passive income? What's the loss of income gonna look like when he dies versus when she dies? How much are their bills? How much money do they have in savings? How long could they live off of that money if they had zero income at all? Will they have any other types of retirement, or would it just be that 401k? And you need to know all this information before you try to deal with that objection. If I'm trying to deal with that 401k objection prematurely, and there's so many objections that are similar to this, that if you try to deal with them prematurely, you don't know what to say. So let's say I get to the end of the call, I find out he has $500,000 in life insurance. He has $500,000 in his 401k. He has a year of bills set aside for his savings. And when he dies, she will get the full 401k. She does still work. So realistically, she's not in a bad position when he dies. Now, is she in as good of a position as when he was alive? No, but he's not in a bad position. Well, now that I know all of that information, I can effectively actually deal with this objection. And these are my favorite situations, because people that are already financially well set up, people will pay to protect what they already have. Loss aversion is one of the biggest, most powerful motivators. So people will pay to protect what they already have. So what I can do is I can head into the situation knowing all the information, all the pieces on the board, and I can play chess, and I can move everything the way that I need it to be moved. So what I'm gonna do in a situation like this is I'm gonna butter them up. I'm gonna get out ahead of it. I'm gonna kind of walk them straight to where I want them by complimenting them. Well, hey, look, Mark, it looks like when you pass away, she's not gonna be homeless or anything like that, right? And they're gonna be like, no. Yeah, she could, of course, use the 401k. I know you said you wouldn't want to have to do that, but really it doesn't look like, if you die, financially speaking, it doesn't look like she's in too bad of a spot. But let me ask you something. Let's say you're not dead, so your life insurance isn't paying out. You just can't work. Like, my dad, for instance, just had, a real bad stroke. If something happens like happened to my dad, where you can't work, and, he's going to have $500,000 or so in medical bills. Now that 401k is getting drained, going to places like that, you lose your income, you have the medical expenses, and your wife's going to have to take time off to now take care of you. Is that kind of the area where you guys are the most susceptible to not retiring the way you want to? Like if something major medical happened? They'll be like, well, yeah, definitely. And then now that you have all that information, you can say what the client is thinking. Because what the client is thinking is, hey, this isn't worth the cost because I already have XYZ. But if you can, before you ask them, is it valuable enough? If you can expose the hole in that and where they are weak, well, then when you get to asking them if it's valuable enough, they're going to agree and they're going to say yes. But hopefully you can see how dangerous it is to just deal with that objection right away or to ignore it. So you guys need to understand that objections, guys, they're data. It's information. It's not something to be scared about or run away from. You've got to listen to that, and you've got to know if they say, hey, I have short and long-term disability through work, then you've got to know later in your pitch, what do I need to add? What extra do I need to do? What questions do I need to ask? And that's why it's so important mastering those top 5 to 6 objections that you're going to get in your line of sales and what you're doing, because if you do that, you can play chess, not checkers. You can be out ahead. And if you're out ahead, the other important thing to go over is if the client brings an objection up, that's you and the client on opposite sides, kind of butting heads. And that's you guys, you know, kind of arguing with each other if a client brings an objection up. And that's bad, right? The more you're on the opposite side as the client, the less likely you are to earn their business. But if you're the person who brings an objection up, and if you ask them about it and you draw it out, it becomes an opportunity for you to educate them on something and for you to build trust and credibility with that client. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over in the next couple of videos. We're not going to do it on this one, but in the next video, I'm going to go over a few common objections and how to be out ahead, how to be proactive, what to do with them, so you guys know exactly what that looks like. But remember, guys, objections, they're information. Their data. Listen, take notes. If you're not sure what to do with it, talk to your mentor, find somebody who can help you out with it, and figure out how you can use that to your advantage. Because what I find is the more objections I get from a client in the beginning of the call, that's more information that I have, the easier it is to close, because I have information. Most amateur salespeople, it's the exact opposite. The more objections they get at the beginning, the less likely they are to close, because they just don't deal with them properly and they don't know how to handle that data and that information that they're getting. If you made it this far in the video, I'm sure you found something valuable, something worth watching. And according to the data, guys, only 10% of people who watch these videos are actually subscribed. So do me a favor, subscribe, like the video if you found any value here, leave us a comment on what you want us to cover next.